Hey everybody, it's Mark here and Imran and Kyle on the football show. We are happy to hear and see you again on another Friday. We've been talking football all week, and this is the opportunity now where we get to talk about it with you guys. So it's great to have you. It's your first time joining us on the football show. We do this. We enjoy talking about everything football. We talk about our fantasy league. We talk about how we're pitching our wits against each other and have a good time for an hour just talking and catching up. So welcome to the show. How you doing, guys?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah, you had a pretty tough week, man. Oh, university work getting on top of you yet?
Yeah, but the Liverpool games at the end of the day, I can't be unhappy with the way we performed.
All right, so you're getting it in early. Fair enough. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing well. But today is the Champions League draw, so I'm a bit nervous about that. We've just drawn Real Madrid, but we'll talk about that another day.
Well, yeah, and there's been lots of chatter about people saying is this Chelsea's last season ever. But look, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to tease you. So, but anyway, we'll see how we go. So, you know how we like to do it. We like to keep the reality alongside fantasy. So we always start by talking about our fantasy league in this show, which is really, really important for us because as managers on the show, we go through and see how we're doing one against the other and then see how we are competing against each other. So this is the top half of our fantasy table as it stands. Any changes from the last time? I mean, we were last on Gameweek 27, 2 weeks on. Any changes?
In terms of the title race, not much.
Really?
The same old.
Let's just make sure that people know who we are in this table because you are sitting there in third, and we're going to talk about your team a bit more. But are you realistically thinking that you're in this race?
I think it is. I think I am clinging on just about. The results need to turn pretty soon, but I'm holding on to hope. I think I was in a similar situation last year, and I got myself into the title race into the last game week. I don't know if I can replicate it, but I'm clinging on right now.
So you're clinging on that what you finished second, or are you gonna?
No, going for the title, of
course. This is the first time that you've been clinging on at this stage of the season. I know you're usually up, first and second, but it's looking positive.
It's hard to stay positive whenever I'm putting in a good week and you see the two people above you just somehow outdoing it every single time. And another example is this game week. It's exactly the same thing. I get a high score, well above the average, and yet Wayne and Paul managed to pull out a couple 90+ scores.
Well, look, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. I actually think that Paul is going to win this league this year. That's my prediction.
It's a bold shout.
I know it's a bold shot because I know you're going to say you're going to storm. But I think they might have too much for you, Imran. What about you, Kyle? Because you're holding steady on 10. You got a little green tick there, so you've ticked up the league a little bit since the last time.
I think the only reason that green tick is there is because in the middle of the game week I went down, and then whichever team played last, I think it was the Sunday, and then I went straight back up to 10th. I was 10th last game week as well. I'm just sat there in 10th all the time, just at the bottom of that top 10. Just here's me, but that's okay.
Disappointed?
Well, I mean, my ambitions were higher, and I seem to be pulling out a few good, game weeks, but it's just not going anywhere. Like I've got the 95 points there, which I'm extremely proud of, and I've gone from 10th to 10th. Hooray!
Well, I'm not going to say anything more about that because I can only dream about being somewhere near you guys, but unfortunately this season I've been fluttering around 18th, 19th, 20th, and I've given up, if I'm honest.
Where do you think it's gone wrong?
I've made some serious mistakes with Harry Kane, man, and I've spotted a couple of other people who've made that mistake. We kept him in our team for too long, and it has really cost us, and it cost me. But I don't know. I just seem I can't get away. I had a target last week to get past Tanash, which I achieved, so I felt quite good about that. I said, well, at least if I can claw back some person, that would be great. But I think I've got too much to do now to get anywhere near top 15 even. It just feels it's gone away from me.
Yeah.
But I still feel that the likes of Adam Bonham, who is a former champion, is down there. The likes of John Mayer, who plays every year but never really contributes anything to the league, really, because he's never competing. He's always in the bottom half. So, hi, John. And
the same could be said about you.
this season, I agree. I haven't got any defense at all this season. So it's a fair point. So look, top of the pile, this guy again, still. A massive 92 points in the last game week, stretching it. He's demonstrating that he's here for it this year.
Yep.
And I had a look at his team, and I noticed a couple of things. I think he made the same mistake as me with Harry Kane, because I saw him brought in Harry Kane in week 20. And unfortunately for him, Kane did not deliver for quite a few weeks after week 20. It's only recently, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, that Kane has really come to the party. Right. But the truth is, I think Wayne has kept Kane in his side for too long. He tends to vary his captain quite often.
But it always works. And it's
not all the time. Actually, it doesn't all the time. He's had quite a few misses. And wow. I think he's also varying his system. He tends to play a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, and he varies, or 4-4-2 even. He varies a lot. And this is the difference, I think, between him and Paul. Paul is very consistent, right. Very strategic. And he always seems to land on a captain that scores big. Right. And when I look at the two of them and look at their averages across the last 7-8 weeks, Paul is streaks ahead. I think the form is with him. And right. He's more consistent with his captain. He's more consistent with his selection in terms of the formation that he's going to play. And he just always seemed to be well above the average. So that's the guy that I'm backing in the race. I think that he's going to trump Skeet. What do you guys feel?
I think the point you raise is interesting, but you could argue that the fact that Paul is, the fact that Wayne is more willing to change is actually an advantage for Wayne rather than a disadvantage, as especially towards the end of the season. I remember a lot of wildcard picks, or like picks that are not the norm, will actually get you over the line in the end. It happened last year with I think Aguero. I got pipped to the final week and by an Aguero shout, and then it's just the form at the end of the season. It can go any way. Whether you've got relegation battles, proper heating up in the title race, upsets can happen. So you could argue that maybe the willingness to change could actually be an advantage.
Well, I think it slows his momentum, though. When you look at his numbers, you see sometimes those changes, when he doesn't get them right, he seems to really struggle to get performances out of his captains, or he might play a 5 across the middle. When you play a 5 across the middle, you got to have some top scoring midfielders in order to keep the momentum in this league. And I've noticed on a few occasions when he's done that, he's actually lost ground to Paul. So look, I could be well off, but I do feel
2 points there. I mean, number one, I mean, I'll get to this on the next slide because I think I'm next anyway, but I played my wild card this week, and one thing I noticed is that there aren't that many high scoring strikers. Like, well, when I say high scoring, I don't mean goal scoring, I mean like point scoring on FPL wise. Like, all the points this season seem to be coming from the midfield and defense, which, I mean, from my history in FPL, I've never really seen a season like this where the points are being dominated. And I guess again, that's from the, the absolutely ridiculous caliber of the Liverpool midfield, of the, the Salah, Mane. But when you've got Mane and Jota being classed as midfielders, the points are going to come from midfield. But then even with like Son and who's that, Jared Bowen at West Ham, like, there's just so many midfielders like Saka, Martinelli. Everybody in the midfield seems to be getting the points, and all of a sudden you find yourself struggling because the big hitters like your Kanes and Ronaldos have had such massive streaks this season. Yeah. And all of a sudden, if you have these 12.5 million forwards who aren't scoring, it leaves a massive hole in your team.
It does.
And like that's a mistake that I made this season with Ronaldo, and it's a mistake that you've made with Kane, and but a lot of the points this season have come from the midfield.
I was glad to see that I wasn't the only one languishing with Kane, because I think Wayne made that mistake with him, and Christian said something earlier this week that I thought was intriguing, and I'll pop that one actually, because it's probably worth noting that he is now joined the top 4 since our last show. He's achieved his objective. He was saying that he's going for the top four, and he said he's coming for you, Imran. But I think he's too far behind to get
He's
to
got a
you.
bit of a way to go for that.
It's not happening. It's not like Arsenal have like 3 games in hand. Like we're all giving an equal playing field here.
Yeah. But listen, he's coming, and to be honest, he's probably, if you look across the stats in the league, he's probably the one player who has been surging, week on week, probably.
He probably is on better form than me right now.
He is. He's the form player in the league at the moment, so he's done quite well. One of the things that he pointed out was the key to doing well this season really is defense and Liverpool and Man City, and that's where he's put a lot of his his effort. So we'll have to wait and see. But he's done quite well.
The second thing I was going to mention with Wayne's team, just having a quick glance at it now, is it's really diverse. Like you see a lot of FPL teams go for the 3 Liverpool, 3 City, and then whoever else I can get. But this guy seems to, I'm just looking at it, I don't think he has 3 from anyone, which is it's a really valuable thing to have.
It's an interesting tactic, yeah.
It gives you a spread to, like, okay, I know at least one of my players this weekend is going to have a comfortable game. And that's a big power to have. Because when you've got 3 players and you're like, oh, they're playing City this weekend, I don't really know how to feel about this game. It's a big hole for you to dig. And, it's quite, in my opinion, it looks like quite a powerful tactic from Wayne here. I don't know if you'll agree or,
We will see how he gets on over the course of the rest of the season. But as I said, my tip is with Paul. I think Paul has got the momentum. So anyway, on to you beat me in Imran last week. You trunks me, to be honest, but Imran wasn't too far away. Go on, take us through there.
I mean, as I said, I played the wild card and I was pretty pleased with it. My one regret is that I had Martinelli on the bench, so I couldn't cross that 100-point margin. Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty successful week there. I'm pretty disappointed with the forwards, but I've kind of just touched on that. But in terms of my midfield, defense, and goalkeeper, everything is just absolutely stellar. I'm very, very pleased with my performance this week. Not many people have disappointed. I guess my one regret is that I took out Matip for Robertson, and I think Matip got 19 points.
Wow.
I'm not complaining too much about that because, Robbo
that could have made a huge difference, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, to be honest, it would have been Trent that made the difference, but I've always had Trent. I've had Trent for a long time, and I knew Trent was going to be the one defender that I didn't get rid of. So I'm not too regretful because, it's not something I would have ever considered. But I mean, I guess the captaincy choice there, all week I was like, do I captain one of the defenders or do I captain Salah? Because, not captaining Salah is just it's a big mistake to make, isn't it? So
he's been a bit hit and miss of late, in terms of captaincy, because
since he came back from international break.
Yeah, I've seen Wayne try that as well, and some weeks he turned up with 6, and as far as I'm concerned, if your captain don't get at least 20 points, that's a fail week. So he's been letting people down a little bit, banking on him to get some good returns. So at least in your case, he's hit that 20 mark. So that's not too bad. That's the minimum you could expect from a captain in fantasy, actually. So you're kind of confirming Chris's strategy, though, because you see you've got Man City players that they're the core of your back line. you're going for the clean sheets, right?
I mean, yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, it was crazy because I played this wild card, and as I like my entire back row there, look at it. Like I think Ruder's got the least points, and he's still got 5. And I got 95 points. And I was looking at Chris's team, and I think he also got like 95 points. Yeah. But like his spread looked so considerably weaker than mine. And I was like, how has he got the same amount of points as me? That's ridiculous.
The game is being won, and the game is being won this year in defense.
Yeah.
That's where the game is being won. And I think a lot of the managers who pick that up earlier, the ones who are tending to be thriving, but the ones who, the old historic midfielding forwards are going to give you the points. That's not working. That's where I probably fell down as well.
I remember messaging Imran like last week when I was planning this wild card, because Imran is like a very, very, very smart Liverpool fan, and I was like, bro, just purely from a strategical point of view, is it smarter to put Robertson in over Mane? Because Mane is that. Yeah, it was a really big decision because Mane is in decent form right now, but Robertson is a Liverpool fullback, and Liverpool fullbacks get a lot of points. So
wow.
I went with Robbo, and he's clearly performed. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you would accept some payback for that, Imran, and you slotted in between me and Kyle nicely with 88 this week.
Yep. I think in the last few weeks, I've been getting really unlucky with injuries. As soon as I bring someone in, bam, they get injured. It happened with Huang and Reece James once again. I got him in early and he performed, and then straight away he got a muscle injury. So that was a shame. But I think my week was defined a lot by my risky captaincy choice. And you both touched upon it. Carl saying that forwards and midfielders have been a bit unreliable, especially forwards. And I fell for that trap in the first double game week where I captained Broja, and he was awful. So this time I decided, you know what, like what you said, Mark, defense is key. I went to
Defense
captain
is
Van
key.
Dijk over Salah as well, and it paid dividends because he kept 2 clean sheets and got bonus points.
Yeah, defense is key, and Van Dijk has come back quite strong this season. You
Yep.
must be really
You
pleased
can
with him.
really see like the big change. So you could see from from August to December, he was operating at a high world class level still, but you could still see it was like 80% of the Van Dijk that we know and we saw. Ever since the winter break, I think that week of rest really helped him, and he's back to his like very best now. It started in the Champions League, and then he's been flawless in pretty much every league game since.
Mhm. Yeah, he just looks superb. 15 minutes gone at the Molineux and it's still 0-0. If you listen close enough, I can probably hear them from here if they will score. But anyway, you've got Wang in your team there,
Yeah.
from Wolves, who kind of had a interesting introduction to the league, but has again seemed to have gone off the boil a little bit. I'm surprised to see him in your team actually.
I think he scored 1 or 2 in a row, and I thought I might as well. I had a free transfer. I was like, I might as well jump on that train and hope that he can just get a little streak of scoring going. I get him in, and lo and behold, he's injured. He's not
The
playing
well
today
goes
because of
dry.
that injury.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just my
wow.
luck.
But at least you managed to although to be honest, in the last show I finished ahead of the
Yeah.
two of you, so I'm back to my regular position now. But it's okay. 68 points is satisfactory for me. I don't know. It's something that Carl said in the last show about Son that I've been thinking about when he said, he has this 11 game streak where he plays brilliantly, he gets lots of goals and assists, and he tricks you into thinking, yep, gotta have him. So I've kind of fell into the Son trap a little bit, even though he's not been doing too badly. But suddenly now that I've picked him up as my captain, he's stopped scoring, which is really what I was hoping to get him in for. I made a few mistakes as usual with my team. I had Trippier in, even though he's out long-term injured. Lacazette has let me down a little bit because he's hit a dip in form and just can't seem to find any goals, although Arsenal overall are playing quite well. And Tony is, this guy is superb, man. If Brentford go down, this guy is definitely going to still be in the league next season because he's an
100%.
excellent striker. Saka has been my staple this season, to be honest. I've kept faith with him. I had Smith Rowe early on, but something is not quite right with him at the Emirates at the moment, and he does not seem to be getting the game time. And he seems a little bit frustrated, even though he's playing well. But I decided not to keep him in my team.
Again, while I was planning the wild card, he is still your top scorer.
He is. Absolutely, he is. But suddenly Odegaard is looking majestic.
At times, I think
yeah,
Smith
he's
Rowe's
still
been
hot and
better
cold
off
for me though.
I think Smith Rowe's better off the bench. I think he scored a lot of his goals coming off the bench in the last 10 and 15 minutes for Arsenal. So I think now that they've got a settled system, I think Arteta's not going to try and change it.
Yeah, and that's where I think Smith Rowe is suffering a little bit. I took a little bit of a risk with Adams from Southampton, only because I thought he's been in some good form recently. And during this game, because I captain Martinelli, who's been my standard keeper for some time. But look, 68 points and being in 19th, I'm cool with that because my season is pretty much over. When they say the players are already on the beach, well, I'm already on the beach as far as the season is concerned. So we will see how that continues to materialize over the course of this season. But I wanted to spend a bit of time focusing on this guy, man, because I think this guy is the reason why, well, part of the reason, not the only reason, but part of the reason why we are seeing such a dominant Liverpool this season. I thought it would be worth just looking at some of his numbers, tackle success, long ball success, through balls. A lot of his numbers when compared to last season are up. A fit Trent, I think, would have made a difference to England in the Euros last summer.
Mm.
And I think what you're
Without a
seeing with Liverpool this season is what England actually miss in the Euros. The guy is just phenomenal. If he stays fit, and you can already see, you know, that he's lost less games. And I don't think that Liverpool will lose. Well, I don't think they'll lose many games between now and the rest of the season. Like how I said, Paul Aaron has the momentum in our fantasy. I think they have the momentum in the league at the moment. And a lot of that is down to this guy, man. This guy is Trent is the man.
Yeah, of course. I can't say enough about him. The way he's
Of
changed
course
the
not.
right back role, it's a revolution for world football, not just the Premier League or not just Liverpool. I don't think we've ever really seen a fullback at this influential on a team.
Are you trying to say that Gary Neville was not a world class right back?
A world class right back for the 2000s era, where the right back just stayed fullback in a 4-4-2, of course. But Trent is just something else. Like, you think that he's peaked every year or has like capped his numbers, and already he's on track to beat his assist record, which he's created twice already. I think he's on 11 assists in the league with 10 games to go. So that's another record that should be ticked off. And he has the potential and is well on track to become the best right back the Premier League has ever seen.
Wow, that is a bold statement. That is wow.
I don't see how you could disagree. I think like right backs have been good, but they've never been integral to
Who's
a
that
Premier
there?
League.
Yeah.
Who's that there?
I think Neville. Can Carl think of anyone from Chelsea? Neville.
I mean, not on Trent's level. Like, I mean, we were having a conversation a couple of days ago, me and Imran, we were talking about Matip, and we were saying that there are very few like Premier League centre backs in history that could ever slot into the current centre back partnership of Matip and Van Dijk. And I mean, that was completely facts. That was like absolute fact, because the workload that they have and carry out is something to be appreciated. But I mean, I think that mentality in that conversation could be applied here as well. Like, there are very because of the job that Trent does, and because of the way he does it, there are so few players in history. I mean, there's a reason that so many people are, oh man, this guy could be a midfielder and no one would care. No, as a right back, that's a crazy statement to make about any right back, and he does it with such ease. Like, there are very few right backs, in my opinion, that could do the job that Trent does. I mean, even as a Chelsea fan, I remember like last season and the season before, you'd get so many shouts going, oh, Reece James is just as good, if not better than Trent. And I'm like, look, put your bias aside. Like, this guy.
But Reece James is outstanding.
I did not say he was not. I did not say he wasn't.
But he's not on the same level as Trent. Is that what you're saying?
Trent is just a different breed of footballer, man. I honestly think that. And I'm saying that as someone whose team was pretty much carried by Reece James in the opening 3 months of the season.
I thought he was getting roasted the other night at the Emirates with Martinelli, to be fair. But anyhow, you got the points.
To be fair, he can have some frustrating games where
he doesn't like tracking back very often, does he?
Yeah, but it's more to do with not the fact that he's a bad one-on-one defender. Sometimes he does that's the one part of his game that I would criticize. He gets a bit lazy at times.
I think we've got to look into those stats, actually, those one-to-one battles with Trent, because I think there's a little bit of a weakness there. And I thought Martinelli exposed him at the Emirates the other night.
I think the last 2 years we've seen less of that, though. I think in his early years it was more prominent, although he still had some masterclass performances with Sane and Cristiano Ronaldo in the final. But exactly, but I think he has improved and worked on it in the last 2 years, and it's shown. But you can still point out poor games. I think the one v City last year stands out, and the one v Martinelli, although Martinelli didn't score, he had passed him a couple of times. But then again, Trent was supposedly getting roasted, yet he created 2 huge chances in the game, just like that.
All right. I know you were going to say that, right? I know you were going to say that, but I still think he was getting absolutely roasted. But he has made the biggest difference, I think, defensively in the team. And as I said, I think because of that dynamic way in which he's able to go up and down the line, but also the accuracy of his passing, which is something that I think separates him a lot from the likes of his peers of Reece James and Kyle Walker and others, equally gifted. But I think his passing is quite excellent, and particularly the long pass that he tends to sweep across the field to Robertson, which 9 out of 10 times it is spot on. Right?
So beautiful to watch.
So I was really intrigued to see what a difference he is making in the Liverpool team. He's been very, very fit this season, and I think, look, this guy continues at the level he's at. world class,
I would
man.
say honestly, this season, and we're having an incredible season. So to say this is a
Mhm.
big statement, I think he has been our second best player this season so far.
Who would you say is number one?
Of course, Mo. No doubt about it. It has to be Mo.
I just wanted to see if you were going to say it. Mo Salah.
Yeah.
Well. I don't think there's any point in trying to
Argue that.
in trying to disagree with that.
Yeah.
But you saw him at the cup final a few weeks ago. Trent, what were your thoughts?
I mean, he just oozes class. I think
Mhm.
he was very solid defensively that game actually, because we spent a lot of the time out of possession in that game, and everybody loves to bring him down when he has a poor defensive game, but they don't see when he has an incredible defensive game. Whereas
Yeah.
with other right backs, you would actually highlight that, but because the highlight of Trent is his attacking, you have to try and bring him down with his defending. But he was brilliant defensively, and then he's just very composed in possession. He's like a prime midfielder. The way he can play out from the back and spread the play, it's just ridiculous.
Wow. Awesome. The Wolves have just taken the lead at the Molyneux.
Oh,
Just
who scored?
trying to figure it out now. Oh, well, you got to wait for VAR, right?
All right.
you got to wait and see if VAR thinks it's a legitimate goal. And somebody in the chat there just now was saying that Trent and Robbo and Salah lead the way with the Premier League assists.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at what is happening, it is phenomenal to think that not so long ago City were 14 points ahead in the league.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing to see where we are now. But when you look at these stats across the key ones, goals and passes and clean sheets and crosses, you might say, well, actually, there's not a lot that's separating them, but Liverpool are scoring a lot more goals, though, and they're leaps ahead. And it just feels as though the momentum has slowed for City to me. Something has kind of gone wrong there a little bit. And I know at some point people are going to return to the conversation about, they need a striker and they haven't got anybody to score the goals. And it does feel as though as the season goes on, that question is kind of coming back onto the table a little bit. Would a Harry Kane have made a difference in this title running at City? 100%, absolutely. Yeah. But it's looking as though where Liverpool need to be in terms of the key stats, they are. And they're pushing City quite hard. And this is going all the way to the line.
I mean, I was watching the Palace game over the weekend between City and Palace that ended 0-0. And I was just like, I don't think any City player in that game took more. I think they had 17 shots off the top of my head. And I think of those 17 shots, the one player that took the most shots was Kevin De Bruyne. And I'm like, why is De Bruyne, a midfielder, having more shots than what I've got to assume was a front one or either of the wingers? Like, it baffled me. I was like, I'm no Premier League manager. Don't compare me to Pep Guardiola. But why is Kevin De Bruyne, your arguably the best playmaker in the world?
Yeah.
Arguably. Having your most shots, it baffled me. It really did. But I guess that almost complements your point really about City needing that kind of finisher in their team.
I think Pep can be criticised a bit in this situation. He has an obsession with total control, which sometimes gets out of hand. Like he refused to I think they made one sub in that game. He refused to bring on Sterling and Jesus, who are their only outlets that get in behind consistently. And although Sterling can be frustrating at times, he misses a lot of chances. The reason he gets those chances is because he's the only one willing to run in behind all the time. Whereas you have Foden, Grealish, Mahrez, who all love the ball to feet and love to control. So I think Pep is susceptible to criticism in that sense.
Oh, he is, and I think it's you can see it coming because that lead has evaporated, and with the momentum that Liverpool has when they play them in a couple of weeks' time, you look beat them, and the league is Liverpool's, I think.
Yeah,
because
that'll be a game for the ages.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because the way that they've collapsed, they've absolutely collapsed in the last couple of games. And they've kind of lost their way a little bit. But look, I wanna put something here on screen. Let me just take this off because I know that I gotta make sure you see this comment clear. Right? Somebody in the chat is saying that he's overrated, man. It's not even a great defender. What's your comeback?
Well, it's because you turn a blind eye to when he does put in defensively solid performances. And if he wasn't a great defender, we wouldn't be where we were. If we had an awful defensive right back, we would get destroyed every game on that side, and it just doesn't happen. So that'd be my reply to that.
Well, I mean, I think it's a fair point. I do think the guy is special. So I would tend to agree with you as on that particular point. So what do you think is going to be the outcome in a couple of weeks' time when we see this game playing off at the Etihad between Liverpool and City? I know as a Liverpool fan, you would say, yeah, I expect them to win.
No, I wouldn't.
Well,
I wouldn't be that
Imran's quite a
optimistic.
realistic Liverpool fan, to be fair.
Yeah.
He's genuinely, but I think like I've just had the note because Trent is in my fantasy, and I've just had the notification like this weekend that he's injured. So
But is he
whether
though?
he's fit,
Is he really?
well, I
injured
mean,
or-
even if it doesn't matter that much to me, to be honest. But if he isn't available for that City game, well, it's make or break in my personal opinion.
It's
Like,
Klopp playing a little dirty tactics here, Imran, with the international break on the horizon. You know, all of a sudden Trent has got is it a hamstring injury that he's
Yeah, a hamstring problem.
mysterious hamstring injury has come out the blue of nowhere. Is he
It
just
wouldn't be
playing?
the first time. It wouldn't be the first time Klopp's done it, and I don't really blame him for the schedule we've got coming up. Our
Jeez,
April
man.
fixtures are ridiculous, and I think with that Liverpool City game, it's you got to consider the fact that it's sandwiched in between two Champions League draws, and we've got the easier draw of Benfica, whereas they've got to play Atletico Madrid twice. So you can factor that into maybe your predictions for the outcome. But I'm being realistic in that game. We are not that good at it. We haven't won in the Premier League at the Etihad since the 15-16 season. So it's not a given at all, even though we've got the momentum. And I think this season is very, very similar to the 18-19 season where City were leading, or we were leading, and there was a 2-point gap. And once again, City playing Liverpool at the Etihad, and City came out on top. So it's going to be a game of the highest quality, and I hope our attacking prowess can see us through.
Yeah, well, I think Liverpool win at the Etihad, the league is finished. Because they've got the momentum and City have collapsed. Sorry, Carl, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to ask Imran, considering the added, forward strength that you have now, would you still go for your typical Mane, Firmino, Salah front
It
three?
is a huge, huge debate. That question is a huge, huge problem. I think if it was tomorrow, I would start
Diaz is the bad man.
Salah, Firmino, Diaz, because I think Firmino is so important in terms of in the big games, especially. We saw it at the Emirates. We could not link the play.
He broke our
He
hearts.
completely changed the game when he came on, man.
We were way more solid in possession, way more solid in the press. So I think in big games, especially, Firmino's key. Even though he's dropped off a bit, he's still the only player out of that front five that can link the play. I don't think Jota and Mane are as good at it. And I think for the left-hand side, you could honestly make a case for Diaz, Mane, or Jota. So any of them, but Salah and Firmino, I think, have to start.
Look, back at the Emirates the other night, to be honest, it was the first time in a long time. In fact, I sent you a message and I said, look, I think Arsenal will win this 2-0 easily. And you didn't reply, but I know you were just laughing at me, but that's okay. But to be honest, I felt we dominated the game in the first half. There was one moment in that game, had Odegaard scored, I think Arsenal would have at least gotten a point from the game. But, Alisson,
but we have the best goalkeeper in the world. So.
Alisson pulled off a good save, and it's those kind of moments that really make the big difference in the league. But I wasn't embarrassed for our performance. I thought we actually played Liverpool quite well, and
that game and the
roasting, as I said to you.
That game and the City game for Arsenal fans should be a good sign of hope, because it's the first time in years that I can remember that you've actually put in a really good performance against the teams of that caliber.
The ref cheated us out of that City game, man.
It's an insult that you didn't get
don't even
points
go
in that
there,
City
man.
game, man.
That what happened in that City game should be in court.
I was just as annoyed as you watching that, hoping City drop points and then seeing that they.
I used to really like watching Bernardo Silva until I just can't see the guy. I can't see the guy the same way anymore, man. Man, come on.
He's one of those that, like, you'd love if you had him, but you hate him when he's against you.
Oh my days! But I felt we are showing some really good progress.
Yeah.
And against Liverpool the other night, it did feel as though, look, we are turning a corner, but Firmino kind of pushed the dagger in and we didn't get anything from the game, which was really sad. Although I was really annoyed with our goalkeeper. You know,
Yeah, Ramsdale should have saved that
oh
goal.
man, come on, man, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I take it for what it was, though. But fair play to you. You got away with 3 points. So we will see how things continue to progress. So look, somebody was mentioning in the chat about the key stats that are really driving Liverpool on. Last time we looked at this slide, we were talking about some different faces. Suddenly, we've now seen Ronaldo and Kane and Son suddenly becoming contenders in the Golden Boot. I mean, we still think this is only going one place, right? Well, I know you think so, Imran.
Yeah, of course. I think the only thing that could stop that is injury, because Salah's struggling a bit recently, and he has a very. We'd love to rest him in the international break, but this international break is like one of the biggest Egyptian games of the decade, because it's a World Cup qualifier. So and it's against, funny enough, Mane, who they lost to in the AFCON final. So it's going to be full throttle month for him. So I just hope that he can keep his fitness, and then he'll secure the Golden Boot if he keeps his fitness.
We haven't really talked a lot about Diego Jota and his move to Liverpool, which you've got to really say has been a resounding success, to be honest. The guy he's been scoring, and he's been scoring consistently. And he seemed to be developing a little bit of a dislike for Arsenal as well, because he seemed to be scoring against us all the time.
Every time, yeah.
I don't know how this became a thing, but suddenly it is, right? But he was quite impressive, and his stint at Liverpool so far has been very, very impressive. Really, really good goal scorer. Even you can see the step up from leaving Wolves, definitely.
I mean, did you and Lyndon ever agree on that robbery of a price tag conversation? Because I remember you did have that conversation.
I remember
how much did you get him for?
40 mil. And I remember when that deal did go through, I was seeing a lot of Wolves fans which were like, okay, you know what, we're content with that, and that actually scared me a bit, because they thought that he was on bad form and he was a very streaky player. So I was like, I wonder how this transfer is going to go. And then Klopp works his magic in our system, and he's just rocketed to another level. I mean, 13 goals. He's turned to a proper poacher. He's like a striker. Look,
yes,
it's bad to say it, but he's reminiscent of Aguero. I know people disagree with that, but it reminds me of Aguero, the way he can get a shot off from any angle and get it in the back of the net.
And I'm not going to talk about Ronaldo, because we'll talk about him shortly in another game. But Kane has been a mystery this season for a lot of people. And I don't know if some of that has been down to the legacy of what happened at the beginning of the season, where the move to City was so hyped up, and you probably thought that, he's off. Didn't happen. And it's funny, because ever since that move was off, his form really suffered. And it's only since the turn of the year that he seemed to be starting to come back into form. And particularly in the last month, he's just seemed to come to life. What do you make of it?
Well, I was quite surprised that he was as high in the Golden Boot race as he was, because I think he's just before we recontinued the show, he was still like on 7-8 goals, which meant he was like 7th, 8th on the Golden Boot race. And like everybody in the world before like 5 game weeks ago, they've been like, man, Kane, what a disappointing season he's had. And yet we're sitting here discussing him in the Golden Boot race, slide of this conversation. And it's like, it's almost like it's one of those overnight success stories things, except it's just not. It's just come out of nowhere, kind of like you've just said. And since the turn of the new year, he's just found his shooting boots again, really. And I mean, you could say the same for Son as well. This Son Kane link-up has just rerouted and rerouted itself into the Premier League, and well, he's back.
Well, you've got your theory about Son, but he's got 11 goals, so is he going to score anymore? I would expect somebody like Ivan Toney to probably be in the final look of this, as when we get to the end of the season. Mane will continue to score goals, absolutely. The guy is an absolute class player. But if Salah slips up or becomes injured, you can never discount Harry Kane. We had him in there as his previous goal about 2-3 times over, so he has to be in there. So
he's done it before.
Before
where
he comes from nowhere sometimes.
He scores hat-tricks in the last 3 game weeks. He's done. I remember that distinctly. And so you can never rule Kane out. And I think he's really clicking with the new front three that Spurs have. They bought Kulusevski,
He's a
and
baller, bro.
that front three of Kulusevski, Kane, and Son is really gelling well. So I think that could be a really good partnership going forward.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued to see how this battle is gonna continue. But I absolutely agree with you. This is Salah's to lose, and I don't think he will. We kind of tossed up whether or not we were going to discuss this at race. I was mindful to move Brendan Rodgers on a little bit because again it's a little bit like what's happened at City, but Pep is there. I just think this Leicester project is finished. It just seems to be aimless at the moment, and he don't seem to be able to pick up a win. And I would be surprised if he makes it to the end of the season. So I'm firmly keeping him on unlikely, probably a little bit further on.
If are they 13th at the moment?
Yeah, I think 13th, 14th.
If they finish, let's just say it. Yeah, go on. Oh dear. I mean, if they finish below the top 10, do you reckon he will stay till next season?
I think they'll give him the summer and next season. I think if it's not good by Christmas next season, he'll be gone. But I think they'll give him a chance because I think he deserves a chance to try and rebuild the project that he started. Because the fact that I said it last week, the fact that he managed to get them to a top 4 race, like Leicester to a top 4 race, is a good achievement. We've got to appreciate that. And I think he's becoming a bit underrated. But I think they'll give him a summer to rebuild, and let's see where he can go from there.
But is Brendan Rodgers a rebuilding manager? Because that's what the Leicester project is turning into now, isn't it?
Well, he got them there in the first place. So if you can try and recycle that phase, because they've not got an awful squad. They've laid decent foundations with the signings of Daka to replace Vardy, and I think Soumare, who's a young midfielder who's going to come through. So I don't know. I think he will be able to do it. But I think Leicester fans, like, they can't get ahead of themselves. They can't ask for something more than they are, and a lot of the time they end up with a worse manager, and then they'll see that they actually had it good with Brendan.
It's a valid point. And do you think the dial has moved any on Mr. Gerrard, or is he still beautifully at risk?
They managed to upturn their form, and of course for Gerrard it's always going to be, you got to give him the summer to get his signings in properly, and I think he'll be a good manager for the future, maybe at Liverpool.
Well, no, we all know that's where he's just doing his apprenticeship now.
I mean, if he fails at Villa, we won't appoint based on sentiment. We got to be cold with it. Like, we can't, like, we see United have appointed Ole and it didn't work out. Chelsea went for Lampard, didn't work out. We've got to do it based on the achievement solely and not look at his past.
Well, I think Gerrard is going about it the right way, though. I think I was always very annoyed with the whole Frank Lampard Chelsea thing, because I just felt as though, come on, man, let him go and manage Derby a little bit longer. Go and, work in the Championship and League One for a little bit and come through. But I think Steven Gerrard is coming along a good path. So you'll have to wait and see. Things have gone quiet with at Tottenham Hotspur. Funny enough, a little bit.
Well, it was him being unhappy with, because the only reason he was there, because we knew he wasn't going to sack, was him leaving himself. I think it all depends on what they give him in summer, because he has a history of falling out with the ball, especially to do with transfers. So I'm not sure what I think is a bit of a hothead when it comes to that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens. But he got his man Kulusevski. Well, he tried to get Luis Diaz, then got Kulusevski. So I think Daniel Levy will know that he has to try and keep him happy.
Fair point. But I think we will see Rodgers in a slightly different position the next time we look at this stat race. So you did the team of the week, Kyle, for game week 29. Who have you gone for, and why?
So if I start from the back, I mean, I went with Alisson in goal with the 2 clean sheets, but it was really that performance against Arsenal. Like, it
wasn't that great. It was only 1 save, man. Come on.
Come on. He's such a
one half decent save, and his arm just happened to be. To be fair, it was good goalkeeping.
Extremely good goalkeeping. Like,
he didn't go to the ground. That was the most important thing.
Well, I mean, I find myself saying this about Alisson every single time I speak about him, which is just his positioning is too good to be true. Like,
unbelievable.
He's like the complete opposite of Ramsdale, where Ramsdale can make an easy save look like he's a world-class keeper. Alisson will make the most difficult saves look so easy because of where he's standing in the goal, and it just blows my mind. Like,
listen, position, as I said to you guys before, positional sense is the key to good goalkeeping. The
Yeah.
penalty spot, as I was saying to a young goalkeeper last weekend, the penalty spot isn't just there for people to take penalties. The penalty spot is there for you to understand as a goalkeeper where you are in the 6-yard box, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about angles. And what really frustrated me in that game was to see how Allison, on the one hand, was able to demonstrate. You got to stay on your feet. It's because, to be honest, he could have gone to ground,
Yeah.
but he stayed on his feet and he knew where he was, and that's the critical bit. And then you look down the other end and you see, now how could Ramsdale concede at his near post? Like, he's lost his positioning. It's
He thought
just,
there was a
it's
cross coming in.
outrageous, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gambled because he was anticipating the cross, so he had too much weight on the left,
Yeah.
and then he couldn't get done quick enough, and that's why he was beating on his near post. It's just criminal.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, good choice and goal. Carry on.
Yeah, so we've essentially covered the Matip and Robertson side of the backline. Did you find out who scored against with Wolves, by the way? 'Cause
No,
I was
but they just
intrigued.
had
It was Johnny, I think.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, I've captained Jimenez this week, so I'm hoping
Yes,
for some
I've got
points
him
there.
in his. I haven't captained him though.
Yeah, but I had Cody in that back line because he's just an absolute giant. He scored against Everton, but
He's
he's
had a good
so
season,
command-
actually.
Very
It's
good
a
season,
fantastic season, man. Like
Yeah.
he must have loved that as well as a Liverpool fan, a goal against Everton.
yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But even Neves too in that game, like he was so commanding. Like I don't think he got any like points FPL wise in terms. In fact, no, I think he assisted the goal, but even then, I think it was just like a set piece.
Yeah.
But he was so commanding in that midfield. Like I think he had the most touches of any Wolves player, most key passes out of any Wolves player, and even though it only led to the one set piece goal, he was still a really, really stellar performance from Ruben Neves in that game. I've put Chiati in there for that 0-0 against City because, as I said earlier, like City were rampant. Like the game ended 0-0, but they had like that 17 shots, and I think of all the defensive displays that Palace had in that game, Chiati was the most stellar one. And again, I guess another controversial one in there is that Martinelli because they did lose 2-0, but I mean, fantastic performances in both games. Like,
Yeah, good, really good player, but I'm starting to think that he probably takes too many touches.
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
And,
I think
that I feel is letting him down a little bit.
I think he
And-
dribbles with his head down a lot.
Too much.
Yeah, and
that's-
we had this conversation in the City game as well, me and you, when we watched it. Like I think he had that performance at his near post that he sliced, and I think he kind of reminds me of myself, like that left-footed player who just doesn't look up. Yeah, but I think he's a pretty good player, and he gets points for me on FPL. So
You're not going to complain.
yeah, exactly. Then you had Benrahma with the 2 assists for West Ham, and then that front three kind of speaks for itself, really. I mean, and I chose Bruno Lage for the manager just because I know it's Everton with Lampard struggling Everton, but they were so in charge of that game.
Yeah.
So
Away
in
from
charge.
home as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was incredible. It was really impressive, to be perfectly honest. And so I've chosen Lage as my manager for this weekend.
I think he's had a really good season so far, actually. A lot of people were quite, a little bit taken aback when he came to Wolves and felt as though, well, we can't really work out this style, but he's settled in the middle part of the season. And, even watching this game at the moment, Wolves are all over Leeds like something else. And he's really stamped his authority. The key thing for Wolves that I felt was going to always be difficult was how they come away from Nuno and the way that he had his style established there. And I think Bruno Lage has done an incredible job. I mean, the way Conor Cody's playing this season is I think he's probably having his best season for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know me, Imran, and Lyndon have talked about it on occasion. We haven't mentioned it in a while, but I think Wolves will be, especially fans, will be extremely disappointed if they don't get European football this season. Because I think they're playing too. Yeah, just like if they don't get Europa League this season, they're playing too well not to.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like for all the work they've put in, especially with the shift of managers and even losing what some would class as a pivotal player in Adama Traore. I mean, I'm not going to say everyone because I know some people didn't like him, but I think Wolves, they're good enough, that's for sure, and they're putting in some fantastic performances. I think a lot of people they're not going to be disappointed with the play or too disappointed with the season, but I think they will be disappointed if they don't get Europa League this year.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair show. It's a good 11 though. I think it's a good 11 and probably some of the best performances of Game Week 29. And I don't know how y'all felt about this particular game in Game Week 29, but I thought when the Spurs showed up at Old Trafford that yes, Ronaldo was not in any great form to shout about, not having a really good last couple of games. I felt United were there for the taking,
Yeah.
but man, what were your thoughts on this game, Imran?
I think it's very easy to say that it was an incredible game, and it was to the neutral. But I actually think it was that game because both teams were actually quite poor, and that's what made it all. That's what made it a very open game, and therefore like the players had chances to express themselves, like Ronaldo, for example. And I think it does, like the win for United. It just papers over the cracks of an actual poor performance, and I don't think it does solve much going into the future still. But it is still obviously a big win for points on the table against their rivals.
Yeah, and it does make I would not have thought that this would have been the game that would have seen Ronaldo really stamping his authority on the game, because to me his season has fizzled out a little bit at Old Trafford. But the Spurs have this habit sometimes of going there and reviving United's hopes, and this looked as though it was one of those occasions. But to be fair to Tottenham, they were equal in terms of attacking across the whole of the game, and they played quite well under the circumstances of being away from home, and it just happened to have been 3 really good goals from Ronaldo that kind of picked them, unfortunately. And he was in good form on that day. He hasn't been, and he's been quite miserable in a lot of games recently, but he seemed to have been quite settled and quite happy in this particular game. Of course, it was a record number of goals for him in this game as well.
Yeah, he broke the FIFA all-time goal scoring record. And it's also important, like, just to notice that this is the game where Bruno Fernandes didn't play behind Ronaldo. Whether you can read something into that, I don't know. But I think that first goal, for example, that Ronaldo scores, a long shot, if Bruno was playing, I don't think he'd ever be in that position.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, absolutely not. I'm not sure that those two actually gel very well.
Yeah, agreed.
That might be part of the unhappiness that Ronaldo has been experiencing over the past couple of weeks. So look, next 6 then. Given that you're leading the charge, Imran, how are you saying it?
6 cup finals. They're all cup finals at this point. I think when you compare our fixtures to City fixtures, ours are slightly harder when you look that we have to go to Villa away. We've still got Merseyside derby, and although Everton are poor, Everton will be fighting for their lives for relegation, and a derby's a derby, so you never know. And then Newcastle, who are on form, we have to play Newcastle away, who could be in a relegation battle still, and Villa away, of course, as well. But obviously, the main focus is that City-Liverpool game. I think the last City-Liverpool game in that 18-19 season was the highest quality football we'll ever see in a Premier League game, and I think this has a chance of trumping it.
I don't really think there's anything there that will trouble Liverpool, honestly.
No, really?
I disagree. I disagree, man.
I would also disagree.
I think that we've given Liverpool's run a lot less stick than we should have. I mean, if you look at that, despite how that City game goes, right, you've then got to go to Steven Gerrard's Villa in Birmingham. Then you've got that United game, which is going to be pretty tough, especially with United now fighting for.
Now, how could
top
anybody
4.
think that United game can be tough?
They've actually
they're not going to win at Anfield to start with, and the squad is not that good. But anyway,
and then
carry
they've
on.
got that Merseyside derby, and as Imran said,
When is the last time Everton beat Liverpool?
I mean, I know to me last year didn't exist, but it was last season. But you're going to factor in that we played Henderson and Kabak at centre back. So
my days.
But
goodness, I remember that day.
Yeah, it was awful. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that period of time in that season.
Oh goodness me!
But
I just 19 centre-back partnerships.
Just forget about it.
I just feel it's such a lopsided derby now that sometimes I don't even think there's any competition between the two of them. Liverpool is so far ahead of Everton.
Yeah, of course.
Even raising the game on the day, it just doesn't seem to make any difference to me. It always seems as though it's going to be a Liverpool. I don't really see anything there that's going to cause.
It's important to factor that we have simultaneously with these fixtures, Champions League quarterfinals and semi-finals, as well as FA Cup.
The fatigue that starts to set in at this stage of the season.
Yeah.
And again, I think because of the way that City play and the possession that they play and the amount of energy that's expended in their games, I generally tend to feel that this is Liverpool's title to take. 10th of April will be interesting.
Very.
The one thing you can't forget, though, is City's squad depth. Me and Imran say this every single time we speak about those two teams. is that if anything happens to any of Liverpool's starting 11 between now and the end of the season, their title hopes are pretty finished.
Particularly in the
Because-
midfield this season.
Exactly.
Particularly in the
Like,
midfield,
I mean, now they've got the reinforcement of Jota and Diaz. I mean, again, none of them are particularly amazing right wingers, but I guess you can stick Amane there and, you know, not be too lackluster. But in the midfield and defense, I mean, even now, like, if Trent is injured, who do you play at right back?
And,
You know,
yeah,
You can bring in Gomez, can't you?
it's nowhere near the same. And I think, in fact, we didn't actually pick this up. We were talking about if Trent will make the City game. In the reverse fixture, when we played City at home, Trent didn't play that game. And we had to put James Milner right back, and he got destroyed by Foden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wolves has gone 2-0 up.
we love my local club. Wolves,
Well, here's your club for now.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think we're handling our games quite well considering our external situations. We played extremely well in our reverse fixture against Lille the other day. It was a fantastic game to watch. But I mean, I think I'm pretty scared for, again, I know I mentioned this last week, but with that Arsenal game, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season Arsenal end up third. I wouldn't be surprised in this slightest.
Man, that is a huge call. I mean, I'll take it.
I mean, it's like the more we go on, the more that prediction at the beginning of the season with Imran going, "Oh yeah, Arsenal get top 4." It's so realistic. Like,
Wasn't saying that after Brentford.
They just look so dangerous and so fluid. It's like
the bridge is tough. Though. The bridge is a tough place for us to come.
Yeah. That's the one thing I am happy about is that we are not going to the Emirates. Like, if we were going to the Emirates, I'd be considerably more scared. But I think the fact that both that Arsenal game and that Leicester game that's still got to be decided are both home games, and even that West Ham game, which is also a derby. That David Moyes West Ham team, I know I say this every week, but they are a genuinely scary team.
Incredible what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
He needs a striker though.
Yeah. Saying that, a backup. Antonio played incredible v Sevilla yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't see the game, but I saw that they went to extra time and they won, which was great.
Dominated.
Well, look, you make a good point about us, but we've got some very, very hard games. And the thing about Arsenal is they can lose their confidence very, very. I think confidence is still brittle, but we've had a pretty good run of wins over the past couple of games. I think about 6 or so. But, you know, losing to Liverpool will shatter us a little bit. The North London derby is always a hard game. Always a hard game. And, you know, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, that is not going to be easy whenever it gets confirmed. But generally, I think looking down that list, the top and bottom is for me where we will answer that question about whether we get up and challenge Chelsea for that third spot. If we beat Tottenham and if we beat Chelsea, and you know Crystal Palace is going to be tricky because we always have difficult games against them. And
you've barely beaten them.
And Southampton as well, funny enough.
You could say that about most of the fixtures there, I was saying.
Southampton is always very... They are tricky fixtures, actually. When you look at who they are, you know, Crystal Palace is always difficult for us. Brighton have been known to give us some difficult games, particularly in the last couple of seasons. And Southampton can turn us over on any given day. But I think that they're in poor form at the moment. So I do feel win against Spurs and get some momentum whenever that fixture is. I think that we will probably go on and challenge. But if we don't, we might see that our confidence takes a little bit of a hit. So I think it's a very short number of fixtures this weekend.
Yeah.
You know who's got that second goal?
It's Trincao.
Trincao.
Podensity.
There you go.
I need my Wolves players to come in clutch.
Yeah, I've got Wolves players. I've got Saiz, Neves, and Jimenez.
It's not looking great for Leeds, is it?
No.
Yeah.
I think they're really powered.
No, it's not looking. Any standout fixtures from this weekend?
Villa.
Well, I mean, I'll be watching that Villa game. Yeah.
That's
I can't call it either. Not gonna lie. Like I played my second free hit this weekend.
I haven't played my actually. How we pick ourselves up now from Liverpool? Let's wait and see what happens on.
The fact that it wasn't a battering and then you actually played a good half at least.
We needed something from the game, though.
Yeah, agreed. At least a goal.
Arsenal needs something from one of these big sides to really I know people will say we played well and so forth, but unless we're getting something from the game, it does feel as though it's a little bit flat for us. We've got to kind of get momentum going again. Leicester Brentford is going to be an interesting one as well, actually, because Brentford at the moment are, fighting for their lives and playing well. And look as though
considering we've got both managers on our sack race.
Yeah.
So
interesting to see how Rodgers plays this one, and whether or not he's going to be able to, show that his side is making some progress against one of the newly promoted teams. So let's see how that one plays out. And then, of course, as we wrap up, we always like to take a look at the table. It's not that far behind now, Imran.
Yeah, we slowly watch it climb, the gap close and close and close. It's actually surprising me. Chelsea are on very good form. I didn't realize they'd won 5 in a row.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. In my head, it seemed like they were playing poorly, but by the looks of it, they're on really good form.
Yeah, they've been kind of rumbling.
I don't know why you thought you were playing poorly. I don't know which performance have you seen from us.
in my head, I thought that you'd struggled a couple of games, but obviously not. I think Havertz is into form now, isn't he?
Havertz has come out of nowhere, man. Yeah. He scored that one goal against Lille and decided not to stop scoring. It's great.
But that L and that D at the top of the table for City, that's where some of the momentum has slowed for them at the moment. And Liverpool are charging. And
that West Ham game could be big, actually, because if Spurs get anything from that game, then they'll leapfrog West Ham.
So, of course, if we when we get back together in our next show, and as we're looking ahead to the City game, it would be very intriguing to see how this weekend has played out. So, lots to look forward to, and international break coming as well. That should also be quite intriguing. And if Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to make the England squad, or whether Klopp is going to say he's not fit, is one to watch. So this has been the Football Show with me, Mark, Kyle, and Imran. And that's it for this week. And we will catch you on the next one. So thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.